Hey, thanks for joining me. It's always fun when we get any kind of comic book with Joe Mad's art in it. I kind of forgot that he did a couple of random other short runs on some comics. He did his X-Men thing forever, and then he jumped over to Battle Chasers and spread that 9 issues out over, it felt like, 50 decades before he just gave up on it and never got back to it for 20 years and handed it to somebody else to finish. But in between, he did a couple of things. There's a Inhumans run that he drew, and then there's this Savage Wolverine that's a team up with Spider-Man, and then there's also a couple of Spider-Man issues with like the Red Hulk. There's a couple of things out there that he's done. Of course, the terrible Ultimates Volume 3, which I've already covered on the channel. But I kind of forget that he did some of this stuff. And, somebody had mentioned recently if I'd ever seen the Joe Mad Inhuman stuff, which I have, but it's been a long time. So I was kind of looking for them, but I ran into these first. I'm like, you know what? We're going to look at this one first. As far as I remember, Joe Mad did 3 issues. This is issue 6, so 7 and 8. I have issues 6 and 7. I'm sure I've got issue 8 somewhere. I'm just not sure where at the moment. But, the story, as usual, I'm just like, I'm more concerned about just looking at Joe Mad's incredible art. The writer, oh God, where do they put the credits in these things? There we go. Zeb Wells. It's a name I remember seeing, but I don't know who that is or what they've done. But he clearly had access to doing some pretty profound work. And I did kind of revisit the story here before I started recording, and I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of remember what this was doing. It's nothing that really stood out to me, nothing that was really memorable, but it's basic enough that it's not overly complicated, and but Joe Mad's art, there's kind of a downside, but it's significantly less prominent in this in terms of Joe Mad's art. And that is that it is, once again, he just doesn't work with an inker anymore. This is just going straight off his pencils. And, as far as I know, the first time he did that type of comic art was in that Ultimates Volume 3, which I want to say was colored by Christian Lichtner, whose colors I really like, but I hated what they did on that Ultimates Volume 3 over Joe Mad's pencils. I thought it looked terrible. Joe Mad's art, of course, his figures and his storytelling and the energy and the action, that's all there, but the coloring, could not stand it. And I always think that Joe Mad's art looks best when inked. And this is just penciled, but it's not a fraction as bad looking because, again, I think the coloring in this stuff is 1,000 times better. It's more well balanced and just not ruining it and distracting my attention from the art the way that the Ultimates stuff did. So I'd prefer it to see it inked and rather than just the pencil, but the way they've got it they kind of dial up the intensity levels. It's almost like to a standard kind of eye, someone who's not looking, you may not be able to tell that it's just penciled stuff. But there are telltale signs, and I think that they found a way around it with their ability to kind of use computers and Photoshop and adjust it around. And Joe Mad makes such clean lines anyway. A person probably couldn't tell, but some of us can tell, and I prefer to see it inked. But anyway, you got soldiers, they're hanging out, sword comes through the wall there, they bust out of the way, walls crash down, guy gets clocked in the face, and you get Elektra. And Joe Mad makes her look so good. I love the red, I love the bandana ribbon flowing from the back of her head, how she takes on these soldiers, the energy and the action. I love this kind of silhouette shot of her standing there with like the laser beams that she just jumps and tumbles around and through. Pulls out her sword, stabs it through the lock, shoves the door open, and it says, Bullseye, alias Benjamin Poindexter, alias Lester Jangles, alias Leonard McLean. I guess it's supposed to be a coffin, and she's looking for Bullseye, and he is not in there. And this intense shot of her face, which I think it's reused We'll see in a few pages. But Elektra is hunting Bullseye. So if you know the history of Elektra and Bullseye from the, what is it, Daredevil 181, I think it was. I've covered it on my channel like twice, where they fought for the first time and Bullseye killed her violently, horrifically. It's interesting. I'm like, oh, what's the story going on here? But she's looking for Bullseye. But yeah, Zeb Wells artist Joe Madureira. I'm never sure how you pronounce his name. Madureira. I'm probably missing. God, I can't even talk. I've probably been mispronouncing his name. So that's why I just call him Joe Mad. But Peter Steigerwald does the coloring versus Christian Lichtner over Mad's pencils. So Steigerwald does a much better job, honestly. It looks a million times better. But so there's been a lot of story points that are going on in these books that if you're not familiar with the state of the Marvel Universe at the time, it may not make sense. I gotta say, I love the entire color palette spread across this page, these intense reds, this intense emotion, violent kind of vibe. I love it. There's Wilson Fisk standing with the city shot in the background. He's like, you have the body then? Probably assuming talking about Bullseye, I'm guessing. And you got this little wormy business guy. He's like, I would not presume to leave this office with my life if we did not. So Fisk says, you will bring it to me now. And the guy's like, we've deemed that not in the best interest of the hand. And Fisk says, I am the hand. So something's going on story-wise that I don't remember where and when and how, but Wilson Fisk is in control of the ninja group, the Hand, somehow. He's saying that I'm in control of it. And so guys, wormy business guy, surrounded by ninjas. Of course, Joe Mad's going to love to draw ninjas, and we should let him do that all day. He says, that has been called into question, Mr. Fisk. Your ninja tire of fighting the petty turf wars of your island empire. They flirt with rebellion. They have invoked the ancient ritual of arbitration. I represent the arbiters. We've reanimated the cadaver and tasked it with ending your life. He says, destroy it and prove you have the strength to lead the Hand into the future, or fall and die in disgrace. You have no say in this. And then the little wormy guy says, you aren't accustomed to being spoken to this way. You may sate your anger on the ninja. And the ninjas are like, wait, what? And then Fisk just attacks them, just jumps on them and snaps their necks instantly, taking them out. So that is kind of funny how the ninja are like, what the fuck? We're here to protect you. We weren't here to be sacrificial lambs. Joe Mad's art. Love the shadows on Fisk's face up here. God, I got to back my camera up again so we can get everything in frame. This damn flexible arm mounted to the side of my table here. All right. That's a little better. Now, we cut to a scene, and I was like, was this something that I connected to some story point? I don't remember. But this is a version of the Avengers, the Brian Michael Bendis version of the Avengers, which I will eventually get to because I really, really, really liked his run. The Avengers Disassembled and the New Avengers and that entire run for years. Some of my favorite comics. I loved every bit of it. I don't care. For some reason, it seems to be kind of fashionable to shit on Bendis's work. Fuck that shit. He may not be quite as popular or relevant now as he was, but he drove the Marvel Universe to success for a long time, and his work on the Avengers made me pick it up for the first time in my life, and I love those stories. That being said, there are stories where Spider-Man and Wolverine are on the Avengers team, and Wolverine is like, I'm going to take your fucking head off. Captain America's saying, it's over, Wolverine, let it go. And Wolverine's just pissed off. Half his face is fried. He says, take your hands off of me if you're looking to keep him. He burned half of my face off, whoever this guy is. And Captain America says, let him go. And I love this shot with the flames kind of casting Captain America in silhouette. He stands powerful but calm in front of Wolverine, saying, the Infernoc is our prisoner. I don't know who Infernoc is, this giant burning guy. He says, he's our prisoner. Put your claws away. And Wolverine just growls. I love that hunched over shot of him. The lighting on the fist, the coloring is flawless. Captain America says, or are you planning using those claws on me? Wolverine packs his claws up and he says, I don't appreciate the question. And Captain America says, I don't appreciate having to ask it. Wolverine says, I'm heading back to headquarters. You want your prisoner to keep breathing? You take him the other direction. So bad guy burned half of Wolverine's face off, and Wolverine wants to stab him to death. And Captain America has to stand in front of him and say, hey, calm down, buddy. Get your shit. Oh, yeah, I forgot to even notice that Spider-Woman's right there. I didn't even pick that up until right now. So, yeah, they were all living in Stark Tower, these new Avengers. Again, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage was there, Spider-Woman, along with Captain America and Iron Man. It was a fun time. It was a different idea to make the Avengers a group of some of the best heroes who were not normally on the Avengers and put them there. I loved it. I thought it was great. And so the text is Wolverine's inner thoughts. He says, I haven't lost it like that in a while. I'm going to lay down for a bit. Not that anyone's lining up to bank time with me. And so Hawkeye, he's talking to Wolverine. He says, after you, Logan, still looking to keep my hands. And Wolverine's like, don't tempt me, Hawkeye, as Wolverine's getting some beers. And Spider-Woman, she's like, Logan, you should do something about your face. And Wolverine says, what do you think the beer's for? They're talking about, there's still a piece of his mask stuck on his face and his eye for some reason. I don't understand why they're implying that Wolverine doesn't know it's there or he just doesn't care. I don't get it. I don't care. Like, I still think it's fine. God, I love Joe Mad's figure structure. His female characters look incredible. His backgrounds look great. His body language is great. He's just an absolute master. Wolverine's inner thoughts say one thing for being the lone killer on a team full of heroes. Most of them know to stay out of my business. Then he goes into his room and Wolverine says, what the hell are you doing in here? After just saying most of these guys know to stay out of my business, and his inner thoughts are like most of them. And there's Spider-Man in Wolverine's room, fucking with some samurai swords Wolverine's got on his wall. And Spider-Man saying, oh, hey, your swords are really sharp, man. Are your sheets expensive? Because I was playing around and you know what? I've got a sewing kit around here somewhere. I'm just going to take care of it. Forget I said anything. And Wolverine's bed does have a little cut in the sheets. So the idea that Spider-Man's in here fucking around with Wolverine's swords like a kid and cut his sheets and Wolverine just busted him. Wolverine says, what do you want, Spider-Man? And Spider-Man's like, oh, I just thought you might want to talk about that time you wanted to slaughter a surrendered enemy right in front of all of us. I think it was like a couple hours ago or something. Love that dialogue. Works really well. Wolverine says, it happens. Sorry if it gave you nightmares. Spider-Man's like, I just wanted to hear your take on it. I know when I mess up. Wolverine's like, who said I messed up? Spider-Man kind of comes at him and says, oh, come on, man. Save that tough guy shtick for your X meetings or whatever. I know that wasn't you out there, and I know you hate yourself every time. I'm sorry. I can't talk with you. I can't talk to you with the Phantom of the Opera stuff going on. And he's talking about that piece of the mask that's stuck on Wolverine's face. Spider-Man's like, I'm trying to talk to you, but we gotta fix this. He's like, it's healing to your face. And Wolverine, as Spider-Man's peeling it off him, Wolverine's like, get off of me. And then a voice from behind them says, Logan. And there is Elektra. Again, god damn, is Joe Mad good. He draws her so hot. Perfect face, the bandana again, the long flowing hair, the great body. It's kind of big, blocky, anatomy that so many artists try to emulate his figure work, and no one gets it the same way. He's one of those guys. Joe Mad's one of those guys like Jim Lee or Rob Liefeld, where they created a style that became so hyper popular, they created an entire legion of artists trying to copy, and no one does it as good. Joe Mad is like the godfather of a specific kind of art style, in my opinion, and no one ever comes close. And then again, the coloring is incredibly good. I love it so much. But yeah, Elektra's there. She just shows up. She's like, there's trouble. And Wolverine just goes, okay, give me a couple of minutes. And Spider-Man's like, wait, what? Just like that? He's like, she just shows up and says there's trouble and you're going to bounce? Love the body language on Wolverine, the anatomy. It looks so good. So Wolverine walks off. So now Spider-Man is left to just kind of stand in front of Elektra. I don't know that these two have ever really interacted before. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes there's characters that have been around forever, but have they ever actually talked? I'm not saying they haven't, but if they have, I don't know about it. But it's funny. Spider-Man's nervous as hell. He's like, so I guess he's packing just me and you and these beers. She's just quiet. He says, you remember me? Spider-Man. He tries to offer a handshake. She just stares. He's like, okay, did you see the new Star Trek? She just stares. He's like, okay. You're like, so you have powers, right? I've never been clear on that. I got bit by a spider. That sounds weird. It was radioactive. So wait, let me back up. I like climb walls, but good. And she says, you should know who we face. And Spider-Man's like, I should? That would be great. And Wolverine says, don't matter. So Spider-Man's like, and you were talking to him. He's like, he thought that Elektra was talking to Spider-Man. He's like, oh my God, yeah, tell me what we're going to do. But she was just talking to Logan. And Wolverine's like, let's go. And Spider-Man's like, hey, you got your mask off. So in the next panel, Spider-Man's saying to Wolverine, he's like, where do I tell Captain America that you're going? And Wolverine's like, you don't. Spider-Man says, but what if it's dangerous? Wolverine says, Elektra doesn't have Avengers problems. She has problems that need killing. And so Wolverine says, man to man, don't tell anyone. Spider-Man says, well, since you said man to man, Wolverine says, no one, this is serious. Spider-Man's like, okay, I won't. And he's like, as they like swing away, Spider-Man's like, I can be serious. So I got to be honest, I love the dialogue. This Zeb Wells writer, I don't know much about him, but he's getting the characterization of Wolverine and Spider-Man very correct. In fact, everyone, Captain America was right, Elektra being very silent. It all fits, and it's got that kind of humoristic kind of dialogue that some people like and some people don't. But, you know, the humor was just coming from Spider-Man, really, because he's a jokester, so it fits. Back with the ninjas. There's a little wormy guy that was talking to Fisk and a couple other badass warriors. Again, this is right in Joe Mad's, interest, like ninjas and big muscular anime-looking guys. I wonder if the writer hit up Joe Mad and said, hey, what do you want? And Joe Mad would be like, ninjas. And he's like, say no more. Or if the writer just came to him and said, hey, I'm writing a story, it's going to have ninjas. And Joe Mad would be like, fuck yeah. But anyway, they're just kind of sitting around like, hey, did you finish up your task with Fisk? And he's like, yeah, the arbiters do not know haste, Zero, and they do not work to the schedule of would-be usurpers. When your fate is decided, you will know it. And then the big guy, he says, the ninja you left with them, what became of them? Little guy says, they are dead. Penance for the insult your revolution has visited upon Wilson Fisk. There is a price for challenging the leadership of the Hand. And the big guy says, my brother was among them. Little wormy guy, he kind of just doesn't even respond, and he kind of looks behind him. He's like, oh, you were talking to me? Big guy says, yeah. And little guy's like, how embarrassing. I thought it went without saying that I do not care. And he goes down an elevator and is gone, leaving these two guys who are obviously some members of the Hand somewhere, somehow, don't know. But big guy's brother got killed. So I'm kind of like, this little guy's fate's probably sealed pretty quickly. I don't know. Great shot of Wolverine and Elektra jumping through. I mean, they're in New York, so they're in, Central Park. Love seeing Wolverine in classic brown and tan. I mean, I know everyone that is the classic is the yellow and black. Fuck that costume. Brown and tan is the way to go. Always has been and always will be for me. Wolverine's inner thoughts. Again, getting into the characterization of Elektra. He's saying her scent is silk and iron, no sweat. It tells me nothing. Neither does she. Doesn't have to. Few years back, the Hand sunk their teeth into me good, made me kill a bunch of people, some of them friends. She didn't hold it against me. She pulled me out and helped me do what needed to be done. Because when the cards are on the table, she's a killer, just like me, the closest thing I've got to a kindred spirit. It's nice how being with her feels a whole hell of a lot like being alone. So that is some incredibly interesting text. I don't know when I've ever kind of understood Wolverine having any kind of relationship with Elektra. I just might not be remembering it at the moment. I do know the situation that they're talking about here, where the Hand got a hold of Wolverine. enemy of the state, I think it's called. I believe that's what they're referring to. Wolverine got brainwashed and just went on a killing spree, and he had to go through all kinds of superheroes. And Elektra showed up and kind of helped him, just like he said. But did Wolverine and Elektra ever interact previous to that? It's interesting to hear Wolverine be like, this girl, I connect with her. We're so similar, it's almost like I'm alone, because it's like I'm just being with myself. Love it. Great dialogue. Wolverine continues, Wilson Fisk must be the mark. Fat Man's tried to off her a dozen times. One time he succeeded. The one time he really succeeded, really hacked her off. And then suddenly, as Wolverine and Elektra, the most super badass characters ever, they get snuck up upon by this girl. Now, I don't remember where this character come from. She looks vaguely familiar. Girl Bullseye. I'm like, who the hell is she? I don't remember her. But the point is that she snuck up on them. She says the Kingpin prefers to be approached from the front, and Wolverine says it to himself. He's like, not 6 feet away, and I didn't hear a thing. I gotta stop hanging out with ninja chicks. So he's even acknowledging all his hypersenses and his experience, and this girl is just right behind him. Great drawing, great composition. Elektra comes up to her, says, Lady Bullseye, your choice of wardrobe is unfortunate. Wolverine pops his claws and says Nachios can handle herself, and she brought me along for a reason. So Wolverine goes to sneak up on Fisk. I love the kind of low-angle, tilted shot. So dramatic, in the coloring kind of fading the buildings in the background. So good. Wolverine says, and that reason's only ever one thing. I'll leave the kill to her, but I can make sure he won't be walking away anytime. And so as he's sneaking up to make to take out Kingpin, Elektra herself tackles him. And she's like, no. And he's like, oh, well, now you get chatty. And then Lady Bullseye, she throws some ninja stars and she says, keep your distance, beast. That shot, that is like textbook Joe Mad, exaggerated anime energy and movement. The hand coming forward, throwing the weapons. I love it. It looks so good. And then the flying stars are coming at Wolverine, but Fisk himself sticks his hand out. Son of a bitch, I gotta get this damn thing up high enough again so we can see everything. Yeah, goddamn. Sticks his hand out so the stars land in his arm. And he says, that will be all, Ms. Matsumoto. So now Fisk is talking to Elektra and Wolverine. Fisk says, I ask you to gather a team and you bring me one mutant? Disappointing. Perhaps you have forgotten what is expected of those in my employ. And Wolverine's like, employ? And Fisk says, she didn't tell you. Until Bullseye's body is destroyed, you both work for me. Love this shot. Big, hulking Fisk figure. Elektra looking kind of smallish next to him. Wolverine standing in front of him like, what the hell is going on? Back with little wormy hand representative guy. Got candles and hooks and chains and pools of blood, maybe? He says, it will take time to resurrect our agent. We've given Fisk opportunity to move against us. He dips his hand in the liquid, maybe blood, runs a kind of bead of liquid across his head. He says, we must prepare. And there's this creepy kind of like, it looks like a doll face with the hollowed out eye. It says, yes, they will come and we shall lay them bare before us. Then they will face judgment. At this creepy mouth. Really cool. And then you get, there's creepy doll thing and whatever the hell these creepy anime monsters are. It says, then they will face the arbiters. Great coloring, great composition, great designs, great comic from Joe Mad on art, and again, Peter Steigerwald on coloring, and Zeb Wells writing. I was shocked at how much I liked this back in the day, and I'd completely forgot about it, but rereading it, I'm like, this is pretty goddamn interesting. You know, getting some characters together that I don't know have ever interacted, Spider-Man and Elektra, Wolverine and Elektra. It's great stuff. I'm not going to get into the next issue yet. We're going to spread these out. But, of course, it's just more great work. And, Joe Mad's work is so sparse, we got to spread it out. But fantastic book. Joe Mad is just one of the best. By God, I wish he would make more comic books. You know, I can dream. I can dream a dream of more Joe Mad Battle Chasers, but who knows, right? Who knows? Anyway, that's all I've got for now. I really appreciate you watching my channel and joining me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.